West Ham are a weird club to follow. There's no doubt about it at all. They take you through some extreme highs and lows and can do so very, very quickly as well. You switch from sort of last season where, particularly from December onwards, we were awful, conceding loads and loads of goals, really bad. You get through then to a load of real positivity in the transfer window, signing players, pipping other clubs to players that everyone's chasing. Lots of big clubs were going and sniffing around Luis Gallere, maybe go and get him. We go and nick Jean Clair Todibo from under the noses of Manchester United when they really, really wanted him. There was lots of stories, I think, throughout the summer whereby I thought we did really well. And there was a good mood. It was really good vibe around the club and the fan base and everything. And I think, by and large, we were all looking forward to the season. I would call it an extreme high if you want. Start the season and it feels like an extreme low again. It really does. And it's just really odd at West Ham at the moment. I've got a certain amount of sympathy for Julen Lopetegui, actually, because he's, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, he's under more pressure than he should be at the moment. It's not like he's lost all his games. It's not like we're sat right at the bottom either. But there's, as I say, there's a load of pent-up pressure from before, as I mentioned in yesterday's video. What I do think is quite prevalent and quite common at West Ham, though, is that when we get into a spot of bother, we look for a saviour. And so someone's going to come in and save us. And at the moment, it's Jean Clair Todibo. And I understand why. I understand why people want him in the team. I want him in the team. Let me just point that out, by the way. But I'm not so sure it makes that much of a difference. I mean, we've seen it all before. I mean, even as recently as this weekend, actually, I wanted Crescencio Somerville to be in the team because I thought it would push Kudus over to the right. We'd play better. There'd be a lot more balance between Somerville and Emerson down the left, and that would be it. Things would be better. Well, you know what? I got my wish. That was quite close to the team that I would have wanted to see. It didn't really improve things at all. That's not to criticise Somerville. I thought he was the best player on the day. And I just wonder how often this will happen. Max Kilman comes into defence. Okay, brilliant. And he's looked good. But Kilman's in. Wan-Bissaka's in. We're still conceding loads of goals. The natural tendency is to look at Todibo, look at his qualities, which are he's fast, he's skillful, good long-range passer of the ball as well. Played for Barcelona. He was wanted by Man United. He was wanted by Juventus. And you look at him as a right-sided central defender and you think, look, that's where we're conceding a lot of goals from that area. And we have been. And you think, well, maybe he can go in there, he can sort it out. But, I mean, don't be surprised, if he were to come in and then the same problems would still be there. Because I do think the problems are probably, I think some of them tactical. I think some of them is probably a mentality issue going on somewhere with people at the club. Jared Bowen alluded to it. Jared Bowen said, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, that West Ham were not doing the nasty things. We were not doing making those tactical fouls, not making it awkward for opposition to play against us, not letting them know that they were in an away game, so to speak. What he was saying is we weren't aggressive enough, we weren't nasty enough, we weren't mean enough. Don't know if you watched the Arsenal and Man City game. They're a nasty bunch, that Arsenal lot. A nasty, nasty bunch. They got the skillful players, they really do. But they will try and grind out a result. They'll be mean. They'll be horrible. Fair play to Gio. Gio said to me last week, long before the Manchester City game, he said to me, it was possibly in our player ratings over on Patreon after the Fulham game, he said, if Lopetegui could have his way, he'd make West Ham into a mini Arsenal. He said that Arsenal like to string almost 4 centre-backs across the back, centre-backs in full-back position. They'll sit back and they'll just be nasty. And this is a week before the Man City game. He said, don't be surprised if in the Man City game, they have no interest in possession at all. They're just going to sit there and soak it up. And even before, whatever his name was, Trossard got sent off. So even when there was 11 versus 11 in that game, I think Man City still had 71% possession. My point being that Gio was absolutely right. He called that. He predicted that game absolutely bang on. Now, the thing is, he mentioned that West Ham would like to be like that Lopetegui would like to almost be like Arteta's playing. He's a million miles away. He really is. And not just because of money either. We've spent money. There's a lack of intensity. There really is. There's a lack of aggression. And this is exactly what Jarrod Bowen was alluding to. Now, the irony here is that the reasoning given by Lopetegui from a top club source, but it's been leaked to enough people that this would be the case, that he doesn't think Jean Clair Todibo is aggressive enough. I think it's aggressive or physical enough. Tough. That's the word I was looking for. He's not tough enough for the Premier League. He needs to toughen up. That was the phrase. Jean Clair Todibo needs to toughen up, so thinks Julen Lopetegui, before he can play in the Premier League. Now, these are the words that have come from, not from Lopetegui, but come from within the club. But I believe them. I believe that to be the case. I believe that Lopetegui has let that be known. But it is a little bit of a weird one, given that almost nobody acted tough for West Ham at the weekend, aside from Edson Alvarez, who apparently offered someone out in the car park. Said to someone on the Chelsea team, if you want to have a sort out, he said it, obviously, would have said it in Spanish, I'm guessing. But, said, if you want to have a sort out, I'll see you afterwards. Down the tunnel or in the car park or something like that. Have a tear up. He's not got any problems with being tough. But by and large, West Ham, we shirked. We absolutely shirked our responsibility against Chelsea and allowed them to play as a training match towards the end of the game, didn't we? Let's be fair. So I think it's quite funny that the accusation is perhaps being levelled against Todibo, which is, well, who did? Who has been tough? Not too many players. And so I am looking at it now and thinking, I think it's time for Todibo to come in. What more is there to lose? But I would suggest this to you. What happens if Todibo comes in and nothing changes? We still lose. I'll give you something else. What happens if Todibo comes in and then after that Faltered comes in? Because he'll be the next one, all right? If Todibo comes in and it's no good, then people will be saying, well, hold on, we haven't seen much of Faltered. Maybe if Faltered can come in, it will sort out the centre-forward position. What about if Faltered comes in and we're still not playing well? I mean, as I spoke to people yesterday about it, it was a lot of people wanted to talk about West Ham. Fans were upset yesterday. There's no doubt about it. We've got Liverpool coming up. We've got Brentford coming up. I think you get away with a Liverpool loss. I don't think you get away with a Brentford one. I'm not saying he's going to be sacked. But, I mean, pressure becomes immense. Pressure becomes intense. They have to work. I mean, there's so much pressure. Not just on Lopetegui. The pressure is now on Todibo. The pressure's on Faltered. This cannot be. Jarrod Bowen's comments were really quite telling. They indicated, they hinted a bit of a mental problem. It's incredible how it may well be at West Ham that it's gone from a really cool place to work. You listen to the players' interviews at the start of the season. Lopetegui was like a breath of fresh air. They were talking about the training drills, how they wanted to play, and it felt, look, sometimes it's not even about slagging David Moyes off. It's just sometimes a change is as good as a rest. And they very much gave that impression. They carried that demeanour, that they were looking forward to it, that things were different, drills were different. They were looking forward to how this manager was going to play. And now you look at it and switch so quickly. I cannot believe, this is what goes back to the start of the video, how quickly things switch at West Ham, how quickly the emotions, how the vibe has changed. That you could absolutely understand. If someone turns around now and said, it's not a great place to work at the moment, you could understand that. It's exhausting. And it's exhausting to watch. What it must be like playing in it, I don't know. There was another quote that happened yesterday, which was Lopetegui had assured people at the club that things would get better. I would expect Lopetegui to think that. I would expect him to believe that. It's not great that he's having to articulate it so early into his reign. Don't worry, don't panic. And I don't think anybody at the club, I should say this, I don't think anybody at the club is panicking. We've done all the press and all the other stuff in the video yesterday. I don't think that's what's happening here. But the longer it goes on, the more questions get asked. The more people ask questions of the hierarchy at the club, the more Lopetegui has to answer the questions in the press. And it's not even just questions, the more there is in and around it, the more there's these discerning voices, aren't there, that will say, "Oh, he's not doing too well." It's the mainstream media, like we mentioned before, and that just builds pressure. So I really hope Todibo comes in, but it's so much pressure on him now. I do think there's tactical problems in the defence, and I'm not sure it's enough just for Todibo to come in and sort them. And I'm going to just mention something now that we've already seen before. If you remember, David Moyes 2 seasons ago tried to change the way we played. It didn't work. It just didn't work. He couldn't do it. So he had to revert back. And of course, the rest is history. That is, if I've got my timing right, that's the season when we won the Conference League. It's a hell of a thing to ask someone to sacrifice their principles. That's not what David Moyes was doing. David Moyes sacrificed his principles by trying to go attacking. He then looked at it and thought, actually, I can't do that. So he went back to his principles, which were defend. Won a trophy. We'd be asking now Lopetegui to sacrifice his principles by saying, drop that high line. It's not working. I don't know whether he's going to do it. I'm not sure whether he's able to do it. I would certainly hope that he has built up enough experience. Look, he's got the experience. The experience has to count for something, right? So he has to be able to draw on some reserves of maybe there's a formation he used before, maybe there's a tactic he used before that he's got to implement. He would certainly tell you, I'm certain of this, that the players were not doing what he told them to do. Or maybe it was just individual errors, I don't know. But if his reasoning for not bringing Jean Clair Todibo into the team was that he doesn't think that Todibo is tough enough, then that game against Chelsea was a wake-up call. Because with the exception of Edson Alvarez asking for a tear-up in the car park with some Chelsea player whose name escapes me, someone will let me know in the comments, nobody in that West Ham team was tough enough. And we absolutely let Chelsea dictate proceedings against us. We let them have a wind down and a warm down. They were warming down during the game, making substitutions, getting ready for their next game. Honestly, they might as well have put the training bibs on, and it was that bad. There was such little aggression from West Ham, such a lack of any toughness at all, that if your one gripe with Todibo is that he's not tough enough, well, the rest of the team aren't doing it, so you might as well chuck him in.